Oh my god, I recorded an entire video that was super long. Wait, what? Client update is blah blah blah. Okay, wait. I recorded a whole video and there was like something wrong with my microphone. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I have to do this again. Wow. Okay, anyway, so for this video, let's just go through all the new Espers, followed by some of the major changes to the game itself, and like some of the events and all that. And unfortunately, I've already done some of the things, which means we won't be able to revisit some of the stuff, but it's not really such a big deal in my opinion. Anyway, let's start with the new Espers, and the reason why I'm going into the Echo first is because over here we can see the Espers at their full ascension. So for example, we can take a look at, okay, so Camille is not here, right? Yeah, so Camille is not here. We can only take a look at the two new banner Espers at their full ascension. You're not going to be able to see their full ascension in the Esper page for some reason. That's like, I don't know, dumb move. Okay, anyway, let's start with Elaine. So this is her first skill, Night Raid. Attacks one enemy, deals 110% attack. It's a single hit, okay? It's not a multi-hit skill here. Inflicts sleep for one turn with a 100% proc chance. She's actually pretty insane, by the way. While in stealth, you deal extra damage. Extra damage is 15% of her attack. So how does she enter stealth? You can enter stealth by either absorbing it, like stealing the stealth buff, or being in her Night Goddess state, which we will talk about later on. Now this is her passive as well, so she has more extra attacks. More extra damage, I should say. Elaine's attacks will not interrupt sleep effects and have a 50% chance of ignoring 25% defense when attacking enemies with sleep. So pretty cool. There's a 50% chance of inflicting more damage, which is really nice against Fervor because that affects all of her skills. Now let's take a look at her second skill, Oblivion Strike. Attacks one enemy 5. Are you guys seeing this? 5 times. The damage is 40%, which goes up to 200% nuke. And each debuff on the enemy grants an additional 5% damage. I'm not sure what the cap is, because certain Espers, like Zelma for example, she has a cap to the total multiplier that she can have. But let's just assume that there is a cap to this, like maybe, I don't know, plus 50%, right? Because, no wait, plus 60%, because there are up to 12 debuffs on the enemy. So this hopefully goes up to plus 60%, which means that this is a 260% damage nuke. And of course, on top of that, there is the extra, you know, ignoring defense and the extra 15%. Okay, actually, I think this is probably not for her passive effect. I think this is just her first skill. Okay, yeah, so extra defense ignoring damage as well. And each hit steals 1 buff and inflicts attack down and sleep for 2 turns. Okay, sleep for 2 turns. Very good for Fervor over here. 3 turns cooldown. Very nice. Now let's move on to her third skill, Endless Night. Gains Night Goddess for 2 turns. And clears all stealth effects from the enemies and cannot miss and will not be resisted as well. So this is a guaranteed effect. Now attacks one single enemy 5 times. She has 2 skills that hits 5 times. Excellent for Fafnir. Damage per hit is up to 55%, which I think goes up to 275% total. And each hit inflicts sleep and buff block about 2 turns as well. She has a double turn sleep on her third skill. So both her second skill and her third skill is insane. It's a multi-hit. These are all multi-hits that has a really good chance, almost 100% chance of landing sleep at this point. Now, if Leora is on Elaine's team and under the War Goddess status, Elaine's Night Goddess duration plus 1 turn. And there is an additional passive effect here, which is at the start of combat, if Leora is an enemy, she gains Dusk Glow. And what Dusk Glow does, it's like kind of lame to be honest. Crit damage goes up by 5%. Why even bother adding this into the essay? It's like extra clutter. Like, they could have just done without the crit damage in my opinion, right? So this buff is actually not that impressive. Elaine's attacks against Leora cannot be resisted, that's about it. Now, Night Goddess grants Elaine stealth for 1 turn at the end of her turn. So whenever she has the Night Goddess buff, she's always going to go into stealth mode, so it's very important that she always has the Night Goddess uptime. Now transfers 1 debuff from each ally to the target upon a crit, and triggers once per turn. So this is really nice. So this is able to cleanse your team as she is critting and as she is dealing good damage as well. Very, very, very helpful in many different content, unless you're up against a tricky. If you're up against a tricky, then yeah, permanent counter over here. But this is the biggest part in my opinion. Enemy miss rate up plus 10%. So whenever you have the Night Goddess in effect, the enemy always has an additional 10% chance of landing a miss on your team, which is very, very RNG, but very helpful as well. And here's a captain ability, 25% crit rate. Okay, we are going to take a look at her resonance after this part. But let's take a look at Leora next. So Leora's first skill, which looks very sus. Don't you think so? Don't you think it looks very sus? But anyway, let's move on. Forward Strike. Attacks one enemy. Damage is 100% of her attack. It goes up to 120%. Inflicts Sear for 2 turns and enemy's AP minus 15%. Both 100% proc rate. Really nice to have, I guess. Because like if you're going to compare her to the Black Twin or the Red Twin, he inflicts Sear, but he does not have AP down. But this skill has AP down as well. But the biggest thing for me is the passive effect here. At the start of combat, resets all of Leora's ability cooldowns. And I like the fact that they actually added the word passive now, so I hope most of the other Espers with passives will indicate passives. Okay, that's actually not true. Xiaoyin still doesn't mention that these are passives. Alright, but anyway, at the start of combat, resets all of her abilities. This is so sick because this allows her to spam her third skill and her second skill every single wave. So every single wave that you clear, you're going to move on to the next wave and you're going to be able to spam your skills again, which is really nice because this is perfect for Sonic Rift, for example. I mean, this is just like one of the locations, but really good for Chronos as well. Anyway, Dawn Guardian grants standoff to allies below 50% HP for 2 turns. I'm not sure this is just one single ally or is it all your allies, and grants standoff to the remaining allies for 1 turn. Now, attacks one enemy, damage is 150%, goes up to 180%, and each surviving allies increases this by another 10%, so it goes up to another 50%, which means this skill has a 230% nuke. Very nice. And before casting this ability, Leora gains War Goddess for 1 turn, and if Leora already has this buff, then this duration increases by 1 turn. So by using this skill, if she already had Dawn Guardian, it's going to retain the current duration of Dawn Guardian, which in most cases is going to be 1 turn, if not, it could be 2 turns as well. Now this is what War Goddess does. When Leora's crit rate is equal to or greater than the target's, this amplifies her damage. The greater the crit rate gap, the more damage amplified. I'm not sure what this is it 1 for 1? So if the enemy has 50% crit rate, then you're going to deal 50% more damage? I am really not sure about that. And grants allies shield for 1 turn right before they take a critical hit. Again, they did not mention what the shield strength is, right? It just says it is based on her attack. It doesn't indicate the percentage, which is probably something that they are going to fix when the global server actually gets its own update. Now, the final skill, Daylight Beam, gains invincibility and attack up for 2 turns. Dispels all buffs on the selected enemy. This cannot be resisted, right? Dispel all of it, cannot be resisted. Inflicts crit rate down for 3 turns and deals damage. And this damage is only 50%, it doesn't go up. And afterwards, you inflict crit rate down again on all enemies for 2 turns and deals damage afterwards. And that damage actually goes up to 120%. So there's a 120% nuke with a 50% addition to your current target. So for a total of 170% damage, which is not bad, I think. Now, before casting this ability, same thing, right? Leora gains War Goddess for 1 turn, and if Elaine is on Leora's team and under the Night Goddess status, Leora gains War Goddess for 2 turns. So if Leora already has this buff, then the duration increases by 1 turn. So essentially, when she uses her second or her third skill, it's just going to maintain the current level of her buff duration. And of course, she also has the same passive that Elaine has, except that right now she gains Dawn Glow, which is a little bit different. So yes, 5% crit damage, which is kind of weird, but Leora's attacks against Elaine will not miss because Leora has type disadvantage against Elaine, which is kind of lame. So this is like her effect. So all in all, I do feel like her being at R6 is probably going to be the most effective part for her kit. But before we move on to the resonances, let's take a look at her final captain ability, increases attack by 30%. Okay, so let's take a look at her stats at max level, which is a 1264, which is really high. So the highest I think right now is Louis at 1301. So this is really close to the cap. And of course, she has really good base speed, which I guess it helps, especially when you're below R6. And the reason for that, we'll take a look. R2. Daylight Beam crit rate down cannot be resisted upon a critical hit. This is kind of lame. R4, for every enemy killed, crit damage increases by 15% up to 45%. It has an actual cap of 45%, which makes me feel like she is not an R4 Esper after all. She's probably actually an R6 Esper because she's going to start off immediately with the War Goddess status, which means your allies are always going to be protected. But like I said, I do not know what the multiplier is. If it's not at least 200%, I don't think it's really that good. But then again, we need to test this out. But of course, she has the potential to deal a lot of damage with the War Goddess effect here because of the crit rate gap effect in this buff itself. So very nice. This is Leora. Let's move on with Elaine. So in terms of stats, she has slightly less attack but more base speed, which I think really helps her kit a lot because she is a debuffer after all. Or rather, she's a buff stealer, so it's really good that she has more speed. So in terms of just your standard DPS output, she's definitely going to have that DPS output. So let's take a look at her R2, Night Raid, which is her first skill. This is an update to her passive effect in her second skill. So this has a chance of ignoring some defense when attacking enemies without sleep. We're not sure what that chance is, but the chance increases to 100% when attacking enemies with sleep, because right now she has only a 50% over here, right? 50% chance of ignoring 25% defense. That is going to go up to 100% at R2 on enemies with sleep. Now moving on to R4, it's the same thing. Every enemy killed, crit damage goes up to 45% basically. And finally, R6, Endless Night, Elaine will always be under the Night Goddess status, which is very helpful because you're perpetually going to have the enemy miss rate plus 10%, and you're perpetually going to be able to transfer debuffs from your team onto the enemy, which is actually pretty good in APEP, right? But the thing is, she multi-hits a lot, which I think that's where the balance is, because if she hits 5 times, APEP is just going to counter-attack like half the time, which is insane. Now let's move on with Camille, and unfortunately we can't showcase her Ascension effects because yeah, the game made some really bad decisions by not including it here. So let's take a look at her first skill, Claw Attack. Attacks one enemy, deals 120% attack damage, and extends all debuffs on the enemy for 1 turn. This is so sick. This is so good because it's 100% proc chance, and it is all of her normal attacks as well. She's gonna work so well with Alice because Alice is gonna like trigger her to normal attack, and that's gonna extend the durations of debuffs on the enemy. Very, very impactful, I think. Okay, here is her second skill, Double Claws. Attacks all enemies, the damage is 100%, and inflicts disease for 2 turns. Cannot be resisted. Nice. If the target is afflicted with bleed, applies bleed damage immediately. Basically, you just pop 1 layer of the bleeding stack. So if there are 3 turns left on one bleeding debuff, you're going to have 2 turns left, but you're going to instantly inflict 50% of your own attack in damage, in true damage as well. So this goes down to 3 turns, which is really quite nice. So I think Ocean set is probably quite useful, but you know, for this first skill, I think the Astral set also works very well. Now, her third skill, Woven Smash, inflicts Sear and bleed on all enemies for 2 turns. This is really good, very interesting. Attacks all enemies, deals 120% of attack, and inflicts bleed on enemies who already had the Sear at the start of this skill. So the way this skill works is you're going to inflict the Searing, and you're going to inflict the bleed, and then you're going to deal damage, and afterwards apply 1 more layer of bleeding stacks onto enemies with the Sear debuff. So this skill, even though it has 120% multiplier, it is actually 120 plus an additional 25% because of the Sear effect here. And on top of that, your second skill has 100% multiplier here, which will then scale off the Sear debuff as well. So that goes up to 125% minimally, because we need to take a look at her resonances. And of course, this is not ascended as well, and I can't remember what her ascension was, but you guys can figure it out as well. Now this is her captain ability, increases allies attack in the Infinite Miracle dealt by 40%, and Calamity Island as well. So she's definitely going to be very, very meta in speed running tower content. I can assure you that. So be it just a Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower, also the Calamity Island, right? So your Howling Pillar, for example, she's going to be meta in that sense. And let's take a look at her stats at max level. This is the part where I think a lot of people are unhappy about because her attack stat is low. But don't forget that she has an impressive resonance kit. We're going to take a look at that. So she only has 1032 attack, which is true, which is really close to Aurelia's, which is 963. That is true, but let's take a look at her resonances and why I say that she's going to be a very meta AoE damage dealing Esper. Double Claws deals extra damage to enemies with bleed. The extra damage is 50% of her attack, so her second skill is not actually dealing 100%, it's dealing 150%. And on top of the Sear debuff that she automatically lands on her third skill first, this is gonna go up to somewhere really close to about 180% multiplier. An AoE damage skill that has 180% multiplier on enemies with bleeds. This is so insane because on top of that, you're still gonna pop bleeding effects. But you know what? That's not all. Let's take a look at R4. When she's below 60% HP, she has lifesteal. So she's always going to land like AoE attacks that's going to replenish her HP very effectively. So her R4 is also really good for her kit. She becomes a really good bruiser in this case. Now finally, R6, Woven Smash Morph. New effect. She gains an extra turn after using her third skill. So instantly after applying bleed, you can apply up to 2 stacks of bleeds, right? And then going in right into your second skill immediately, you can deal another like what I said, right? 180% damage, pop off 2 layers of bleed, which is another 100% of your attack in true damage, which could essentially be somewhere about 6,000 extra true damage. Very, very powerful. Her kit is amazing. And on top of that, her cooldowns are super short as well. I do feel like she's probably one of those Espers that I would definitely like to heavily invest in because I feel like she has a lot of potential, not just for the tower content, not just for Calamity Island, but in fact, maybe even speed cleaving in PvP. I do feel like she might have some really good role in Point War, for example, or maybe even in Knockout. But anyway, let's take a look at Yuuhai, who is the next Esper here. I'm really hyped about Yuuhai. The more I look at her kit, the more I think that she's really good. It's just really unfortunate that she looks like Layla with an open top. Maybe someone shot a bit too hard, I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, let's... Shit. Okay, anyway, let's start off with her first skill, Star Bubble. Attacks one enemy, deals 90% attack, that goes up to 100%. Not much, with a 60% chance of inflicting speed down for 2 turns. Who gives a shit? Serious what? Grants one ally absorb and shield for 3 turns, and the shield strength goes up to 100% of their max HP. Your ally has an extra HP bar. What the heck? This skill goes down to a 3 turns cooldown. Amazing. 3 turns is really short, by the way. And now her third skill, Galactic Wave, attacks all enemies, the damage goes up to 90%, so it's a 90% AoE nuke. Dispels only 2 debuffs from each ally, it's not a full team cleanse, and grants them attack for 2 turns. Very nice. Now the reason why I say this is very nice is because any Esper with an attack buff is instantly going to be an Anki-Chai abuse in Desolate Lands, for example, or in any other content that you would be using Anki-Chai. So like Calamity... Wait, hold on. Calamity Island? No, she's not an Inferno type, right? Yeah, unfortunately, she's the Shimmer type, so you can't use her in Calamity Island, but she's going to be really useful in Desolate Lands just because she has the attack up buff. Now let's take a look at her stats. So in terms of her attack, it's low because she's not really so much of a damage dealer, so her AoE damage is probably not going to matter. Her HP is really low, but her defense is quite high, so kind of like similar to Yuuhai in this case. But she does have a really good speed of 106, so we need to check whether does she have an additional 10 speed in her Ascensions so that she becomes one of the fastest Espers in this game. But let's take a look at her Resonance. Oh wait, actually I can check that out in just a little bit as well. Let's take a look at Resonance first. Okay, so Hasty Action, if an ability is on cooldown, your speed increases by 20. This is so strong. This is way beyond my expectations. So she's gonna cycle her skills very effectively. It's just a little bit unfortunate that she does not provide the speed buff. If not, wow, insane. Now this R4 here, okay, wait, R1 as well. Her second skill has an additional 10% shield strength for 110% of your allies' max HP. And then we have R4, when granting shield strength plus an additional 30%. I'm not sure this is additive or multiplicative, but then again, it's probably the difference of like 3% HP, which is not much. But another 30%, insane dude. And finally, her R6, I'm so excited about this, resets all ability cooldowns on the target, and this effect will not work on herself. The cooldown of this skill is not affected by any ability, but you can use Ocean to reduce the cooldown of her second skill. It's how it works. So as for her Ascension, I strongly believe that this was the AP gain that she provides to one of your random allies, so she's instantly super good for Desolate Lands, for example. She's, yeah, definitely one of the top tier Espers in Desolate Lands. And her Captain ability is actually kind of cringe, but that's about it. So let's take a look at her Ascensions, and I'm very curious to know what is her final speed. Alright, so let's check this out. She has 70 attack for some reason. She has 950 HP. And yeah, this is her first skill. Yes, grants one random ally 20% AP. Very nice. 10% resist. Okay, or 7 speed, not 10 speed. So what's this? Defense plus 20%. Kinda trash. I mean, the 7 speed is okay, but I guess that's it for Yuuhai. So those were all the new Espers in the game. But let's take a look at the rest of the new updates in this game because we have some fusions over here. So the first is going to be Camille, and you'll be surprised and happy to know that she is completely free to play. All you need to do is just do your dailies, and like what the maze is just basically a cute miracle. So there's some of these requirements that just requires you to play the game. So by playing the game, you're going to get a free R6 Camille. I think this is a huge steal, but of course we do not know what's to come in the future. We do not know whether are there going to be more stringent requirements. Do you need to, like, I don't know, here says clear Chronos 5, right? Do you possibly need to clear Chronos 16? That I'm not sure, and that I'm a little bit worried about, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot more difficult as we progress through her various resonances. Anyway, that's it for Camille. Let's take a look at Yuuhai and the new Phantom Sisters as well. I mean, they're not new, but this is how you can build them. So for the Phantom Sisters, you're going to be needing Chronos Espers, right? So as you can see here, Xiaoyin, Ira, Black Twin, they're all Chronos Espers, and you need something called the main wave for the Nonia, which is the Phantom Sisters. We'll get into that in just a bit. And the same goes for Yuuhai. You will be needing APEP Espers. There is Joser, Steward, Sander over here, and you need to build them accordingly. And then you need 30 copies of this main wave. So let's check out what this is about. So going into trials, we can see exactly what this is. So in the Ritual Miracles, right, there is a requirement for you to beat difficulty 7 or higher 3 times to claim all of these rewards. So there is 1 main wave for a total of 30 main waves, and 4 of each of the ripples for these Espers as well. So in total, 30 times 4, we will get 120 ripples of Ira and 120 ripples of Xiaoyin, which is essentially 3 copies of both of them, right? Free copies. Free 3 resonances. It is insane. But what you notice is that I'm done for the day and I cannot collect more, and the reason for that is because this actually resets every single day. Let me show you. So if you go to Conqueror here and press the I at the top right, you will notice that this mission refreshes every single day. So it takes you a whole month for you to get a single copy of Yuuhai and a whole month for you to get a single copy of the Phantom Sisters this way. But of course, on top of that, you're gonna get 3 additional copies of each of these epic Espers, which is so freaking free to play, like so freaking free to play friendly. If you are lacking those pieces, those essential resonances, like for example Xiaoyin, right, his R6 is so important. This is going to be a great way for you to get more extra copies of him for free. All you need to do is just log in every single day for 30 days. They really needed to have done this much sooner, I feel. But anyway, the QOL change here is super crazy good, and I really appreciate it a lot. But what you might notice is that for Fafnir, there aren't any more main waves, so they're not going to give you more copies of Gabriel, for example. Now next up, for the next event, we have the Beard Contest, which I think is the Markiplier event because this definitely looks like a Markiplier mustache, and same goes for the Markiplier, I mean the mustache points here. So we can obtain 3 gold records and the nameplate, and of course the frame as well, which lasts perpetually. So very nice. All players in this game are going to have at least one kind of frame that they can put on their character. that would last perpetually as well. So you need to use some of these Espers and clear designated stages with them in order for you to obtain these points. And that's about it. But you can only get 5 points every single day, so it takes you at least 1 week of grinding in order for you to get the nameplate, in order for you to get a frame. But very nice, free to play friendly. Now next up we have the Star Shuffle, and this is a place where I'm so sad that my recording got corrupted because I actually got one of these star pieces over here. So the way that you obtain these keys is just by having a full clear on your daily quest. So if you get 100 daily quest points, you will get up to 10 keys. And with these 10 keys, you can unlock 10 different boxes. And what you notice is that for this current floor, we have 20 boxes to open, and I do believe it stays the same for each of the 3 different stages, for a total of 60 boxes to open, which will then require you 6 days in order to fully complete this and to guarantee a first copy of your R0 Elaine. Of course, you can get it a little bit sooner depending on how lucky you are, but it's going to be extremely easy, right? Just 6 days at most for you to get your first copy of Elaine. Now to wrap up this video, let's take a look at the new event, and I can guarantee you that we're going to get a whole ton of stuff, like a lot of stuff. Let's start off with the missions. So we have done a Leora's trial earlier. We have gotten so many copies of this mission points, by the way. So I've actually already bought my first copy of Yuuhai, and I'm already halfway through the next copy, which is like so freaking easy because there's so many missions here. Take a look at that. There's so many missions. So I think they probably acted on the fact that the previous Palmy season was really difficult to clear. So I feel like right now, they made it so much easier for new players, or at least just like players in general, to get the R6 copy of Yuuhai, which I really appreciate a lot. Good on you, Dislyte. Now let's take a look at the shop before we move on to the rest of the other things in the event. So as you can see, there are 3 different event currencies. The first is going to come directly from the event missions only. So please make sure that you use it to complete an R6 copy of Yuuhai before buying the rest of the stuff. She is the priority here, okay? Don't forget about that. Now next we have the stamina shop, which requires something called the data chip. And how you obtain it is essentially just spending stamina in these areas, the Ritual Miracles, Sonic Miracles, Sonic Rift, Desolate Land, Story, and other stages as well. Basically stages that require stamina. And that's how you get this data chip. And you can obtain not just 2 gold records, not just 4 gold records, not just 6 gold records, but 6 gold records and 6 flow records, and on top of that, 1 more legendary abilimon from this shop, and of course a shimmer record and a reset stone. Very nice. But that's not all. Let's take a look at this, which is like a pork chop, which is not. It's actually called a snake tooth, haha. So it also gives you 1 legendary abilimon, 2 gold records and 2 flow records, for a grand total of 8 gold records, 8 flow records in the shop, and 2 legendary abilimons. Now moving on to the story, this is where you can see like what are other stuff that you can obtain for free. So the first section here, this is just the shop. Essentially just whatever you can buy from the shop. So there's no more additional legendary abilimon, don't get scammed. So there are 2 main areas in the story. The first is the Tabaton, the second is the underground lab. There is always a lab involved for some reason. Now in Tabaton, we can obtain another 2 more copies of gold records and 200 Nexus crystals. And of course on top of that, this is where you can get the snake tooth that would then be used in the shop itself. And then in the underground lab, we have another 2 more gold records for a grand total of 12 gold records from this event. And of course like the rest of the snake tooth. And another 300 Nexus crystals for a grand total of 300 Nexus crystals, which you can convert into 1.5 gold records for a grand total of 13.5 gold records. Amazing stuff. There's so much rewards here. And of course we have the trials. And the trials is actually pretty fun to see. And I'll just go through with you how this works. So there's going to be more stuff here, and from what I can tell, there is 1 flow record, there is another flow record, there is a reset stone, 1 gold record, a nameplate, and a shimmer record. So there is a lot of freebies in this content. I love it a lot. So let's take a look at how the trials look like right now. So we need to use Leora here. She is a requirement here, and the reason is because she is insane for this content. Let's figure out why this is the case. Alright, so I'm going to change up my lineup just a little bit, and I think this should work out very nicely for us. I want you to pay attention to what Leora can do, by the way. She's like so broken for this content. Okay, so here we go. We push our AP up. Sienna gives us an attack buff. Hengrye, yeah, does a thing. And now we AoE nuke. Boom! And this repeats itself, by the way. Like, it's just so crazy that she resets her skills on every single wave. So she's constantly landing AoE attacks this way. It's amazing. Like, she's instantly good for Sonic Rift if you're using her as a Sonic Rift farmer, which is a little bit expensive, I know, but it's possible. It's so crazy, right? It's I mean, she's gonna work really well with Alice in this case, because Alice gives you an attack buff every single wave as long as you start off with buffs. So she's gonna combo really well with Alice, I think. Not Sienna in this case. But I'm gonna go ahead and skip to wave 10 because that's where we encounter our first boss battle. Now, one thing to take note of, which I forgot to mention, is that there is a timer on the top right. So it lasts for 3 minutes, so you have only 3 minutes to get this done and over with. And do take note that animations do eat into your timer as well. So if you do have animations, unfortunately, that's going to eat a little bit. See, even this warning sign is eating into our timer as well for some reason. Yeah, and there are 20 waves to this, which means that probably there will be 2 different bosses. So the first boss is Barrels over here, and I can't really tell exactly what he's doing, and we will definitely investigate a little bit more. I can look at the skills over here. Maybe I'll just show you on the screen. But I don't want to go too much into detail about what he does, because this video is just going to be a little bit more casual, just to explore a little bit more about the current update. So that's the first boss done. We can move on to the rest of the other waves. And that is how we get our score. So depending on how far you can climb, that's going to give you a different scoring. And hopefully you can beat whatever floor that's required to get an EX++, so that you can get your Shimmer record at the end as well. Okay, so we ran out of time and we got an EX, which is really good. So we improved our score a little bit and we got ourselves our name card. Nice. Very nice. Perfect end to this day. And we are currently number 11, which means you're going to get, what is this, 130 Nexus Crystals, I think. Okay, but as you can see, they have gotten rid of all the Shimmer records here because they have put the Shimmer records back into other different areas. So for example, there is one in the shop and there is one over here as well. But on top of that, there is only one legendary Abilimon right now. So that is that. Alright, so anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. How do you feel about whatever that you're seeing right here? Let me know your thoughts about the new Espers as well. Where do you think they're going to be excellent in? Where do you think they are going to be a little bit more effective, right? Because now all we care about are not really so much about Espers that can do everything, but about Espers that can do a few things, but really well at the same time. That's the most important thing, I think. But anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now that's it. This has been Free to Play. And as always, I will see you in the next video.